It's no blood, no foul. It's no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul. Emotions spill on the court when you proud. To rep your city, New York's the hometown. Playgrounds prepare me for them hard fouls. Diving on the asphalt and drive.
What's going on, everyone? And welcome to the latest edition of the No Blood, No Foul podcast presented by Real GM. I'm your host, Slice. Tonight, I'm joined with my co-host, as always, Coke, Jim, as well as our executive producer, Moo. Also joining us as a special guest ally is Paul Knepper, author of the book Knicks of the 90s, Ewing, Oakley, Starks, and the Brawlers That Almost Won It All, as well as host of the New Book Sports Pod. You can follow his Twitter directly at PaulieKnep. Paul, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us late tonight, early this morning, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. But, the Knicks basically played 35 and a half good minutes of basketball before it all went downhill on their way to a 128-105 loss to Phoenix to drop to 37-30 for the season and 2-2 on his all-important West Coast road swing. It was a rough start early on as Phoenix was able to jump out to a quick 21-8 lead, but the Knicks closed the first quarter on a 25-9 run of their own to take a 33-30 lead heading into the second quarter, and Julius Randle led the way for the Knicks with a nice 13-7 early on. The second quarter saw Obi Toppin make some highlight plays to get some fans talking a bit. Both sides of the court there. Derrick Rose was moving and grooving, as Clyde would like to say, as the Knicks took a 7-point advantage going into the half, 63-56. Julius led the Knicks scoring-wise with 17, while DeAndre Ayton led the Phoenix Suns with 14 and 9. Third quarter saw the Suns cut into the lead a little bit pretty early on in that quarter there as the three-point shooting got a little hot. The Knicks were able to push the lead to 7 with a minute left before it all just started to unravel in a really bad stretch. Campaign 3 was followed by the Knicks being out-hustled at the buzzer with Torrey Craig doing a putback dunk or putback layup, I believe, before R.J. Barrett threw one of the most laziest inbound passes I've ever seen in my life to let Campaign hit a gimme that actually put the Suns then up 90-88. And the fourth quarter was just a joke from there. The Suns couldn't miss. The Knicks couldn't get anything going offensively. The only highlight was Taj Gibson chasing down CP3 and giving him a quick, a little shoulder blow on their way to a 23-point loss. Like I said, it was basically three full quarters of great basketball from the Knicks. They were doing a good job against D-Book and CP3 early on. We thought we were going to get the revenge win, and then it just all went downhill. Just DeAndre Ayton killed it down low, boys. We saw it now back-to-back games with some good centers killing us. This is why these West Coast swings suck. We're up here at 1 o'clock in the morning after a game, and we get to see the Knicks, just let us down late. Coke, I'll kick it off to you for your thoughts to start, man.
Well, this is a hell of a way to, spend your Friday night. And, after that second half, I really don't have too much, to say. But I do got to place blame for this loss on, just a few individuals. And I got to blame my fellow, podcast panel members, man, for this one. Because you guys kept telling me, hey, coming off that ugly loss, the Knicks rarely lay two stinkers in a row. And that's exactly what happened in the second half, man. They just, I know it looks like only the fourth quarter was the big reason for this loss. But even if you look at the third, the defense just wasn't there. And anytime you give up the amount of points we gave up in the second half, you can't expect to win a game on the road, especially against, a team led by a veteran like Chris Paul. And, this game was scary to me. I don't think we match up well with this team. I knew they would really want to beat us coming off that loss that they just came off of. And, they showed that they wanted it more. So, we had a throwaway game last game. I think this is a throwaway half. Hopefully, this isn't setting a trend. I want to see us come back stronger in our next two games when we get out to L.A. and, try to get these last two games on the West Coast swing and go home 4-2. That was always the mark for me coming out on this swing. If we would, go back to New York with a 4-2 record, that would be a success in my eyes. So let's hope they can salvage those two last games in LA and, keep it moving. Jim, give me your thoughts on this one.
So I want to preface my thoughts with saying that I feel like RJ probably deserved to shoot like 10 free throws tonight. I mean, there was like multiple drives that I saw him get hacked. I don't think that necessarily really changes the outcome of the game, but I wanted to just preface that and say something nice about RJ for what I'm about to say, because he was brutal tonight. I don't want to I'm going to have to put all the blame on him because he was kind of the momentum switcher. That lazy pass in the third quarter, He made a bunch of he did not close out a bunch of times on open 3-point shooters. I mean, that's the reason why Jay Crowder shot 6 of 12. I don't want to put all the blame on him, but he kind of deserved it. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily because he's played so many minutes, but he took way too many shots for somebody that wasn't hitting anything, and he needs to take a little responsibility for this bad game. And you could definitely tell that Monty Williams definitely game planned for us a little bit more too. He found a way to get Ayton involved in a way that he wasn't involved in the last game that we played with him. He definitely must have watched a little bit of tape of Jokic, because he was just taking Noel off the dribble face up a bunch of times. And I mean, that's why he went up for 26 and 22. He was dominant. But yeah, those are my thoughts, are my first thoughts in the game. Moo, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was not a good omen. I mean, we saw what happened with that lazy pass, but I don't think it was a good omen that neither Booker nor CP3 really got it going at any point, other than CP3 in the fourth, and they were close, right? That's what really scared me, because I'm looking at the score, I'm looking at what they've done, and they were pretty much invisible for the first half, and they still were close. So even leading up to the second half, it was troublesome. The Suns are a great team, right? They can score. I mean, they could always score. The thing is, what differentiates this year from the previous year is their defense. That's a really good defensive team. And when you can score like you can, and you have a big play guy like CP3, and now you can defend, man, that's a hard team to beat. And the Knicks, they ran into a buzzsaw. They have a hard time. I think I mentioned in previous podcasts, they have hard times with teams like this, right? Teams that have shot creators and that can defend. Why? Because the Knicks, they really lack, they're still lacking, they've always lacked, right? True shot creators against tough defenses. Randall is fine, right? Randall's been great, all NBA possible, but he struggles against elite defenses, right? Creating shots. Because again, he's a power forward. He's not LeBron James. He's a power forward, a skilled power forward. And when you have your starting point guard, as Alfred Payton, you're going to struggle. And the Knicks struggled mightily against the Phoenix defense. The defense of the Suns was what killed them. It wasn't so much anything else. I mean, we could say it was that series of plays towards the end of the third, but it was the Suns defense that killed them. They just had no answer for it. If this was a weak offensive team, then maybe. But with that defense, they had no answer to it. And I think that's ultimately what cost the Knicks the game. Paul, what's your take?
Yeah, I think a lot of us Knicks fans got a little ahead of ourselves with that winning streak. That was great. They were playing great ball. There's no doubt about it. But there are these kind of heat check games where we go up against the elite teams in the league, and I just you watch. I mean, absolutely their defense, but both ends of the floor, they're just so crisp, right? They're just they make all the rotations on defense. They're in the right place, and Chris Paul he's just a maestro. I mean, I've always loved watching him play. You're right. He never really he kind of got going in the fourth quarter. He didn't get off, but you always have the sense he's in control of everything that's going on out there. And you're exactly right too. I mean, Randall's been a great point forward for us this year, but the reason he's a point forward is because we don't have a point guard. And you're right, we missed some of these games too. You just see that there's a talent gap. We don't have a lot of high end talent. I mean, RJ hopefully gets there, but I mean, our second and third best players are probably RJ, who's had a great year, but isn't near that all-star level yet. He's still only 20 years old, and then on the other end is Derrick Rose, who's kind of past his prime. He's been playing great, but he's past his prime, and we don't have those another 26-year-old superstar. I think also tonight, I think they missed Quickly and Burks, and even more Burks because of what you were saying, Muka, that shot creation. And so they did miss those guys. And look, Phoenix just got hot in the fourth quarter too. That happens too. Sometimes guys are just knocking down shots. But we got beat by maybe the best team in the league tonight.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of basically what it came down to, right? I think Burks and Quickly's, being out kind of last minute would have changed a lot of predictions that we had. I think Jim and I might have been the ones to think that we were going to win, but that changed a lot of it because, like you said, you go from Chris Paul to just having Elfrid Payton is being forced to play out there, and Kyle gave me permission to use plus minus tonight because he's got some more stats that he could look at. Elf team low 18 minutes out of the rotation players, minus 23 tonight. I mean, he's one of the worst. Kyle, what did you say? He's 494th or something like that.
Not that bad. Minus. Not that bad.
Not that bad.
Yeah, he's 433rd.
33rd. Sorry, 60 off. Still trash. But there's a reason why Coke Scrub of the Night is called the Elfrid Payton Award winner, because he's just that awful. You know what I mean? Another big thing was turnovers. The Knicks didn't really play their defensive basketball. Phoenix had 7 turnovers total, but, take out some shot clock violations at the end. It was 13-5. The Knicks just haven't been able to take care of the basketball as well as they should have lately, and also not forcing enough turnovers, and that just comes into kind of that defense there. And also, it's just with a big team, like you said there, Paul. DeAndre Ayton dropped 26 and 15 tonight. We saw what Joker did. The Knicks' biggest weakness is a big-bodied offensive, center down low who can dominate, and the Knicks just have no question for that. And another key thing that I want to point out was Jay Crowder. He wasn't there for the last game. He came out big this game. He hit some threes in the fourth, but he's one of those tough defensive guys that kind of gets under everybody's skin. You know what I mean? He's still talented no matter how old he might have lost a few steps, but he was big for the Suns coming back, missing 9 games, some great defense that he's a good defensive player. Just a tough team. We played 2 elite Western Conference teams, and unfortunately we got 2 blowout losses that came out of it.
It's not just Jay Crowder too. It's Cameron Payne and Frank Kaminsky. They gave them big minutes and big points off the bench. I think they both scored I think Payne was another 15 points and Kaminsky was 10. I mean, you can't when you're getting random role players going off like that, you can't win. You're not going to win. You have to defend those guys better or hope they miss shots. We left them open. They didn't miss shots. That's the big difference.
Yeah, and speaking of not missing shots, I mean, I just got to go back to the defense. Anytime you give up 72 points in the second half, you're not winning that game. And, when you look at the percentages, the Suns shot 43% from 3, 47% from the field. The defense just wasn't there, and that's our hallmark. And, we didn't bring it tonight, especially to close out the game in that final quarter. So, it just wasn't a good night for us all around. And speaking of going up against these teams with big centers across the middle, who present a size challenge, this is one of the reasons why I know it wasn't popular. But if we would have been able to get, some center, a center in here who can rebound the ball, he has some girth, he has some size. You guys know who I'm talking about. Come on.
Do not say Andre Drummond. Do not say Andre Drummond.
Oh, yes.
Do not say Andre Drummond.
If you could have got him cheap, games like this, he would have come in handy, just to get
Andre Drummond is not stopping Jokic. Andre Drummond is not doing much against Ayton. You can use your small sample size, bro, but he ain't stopping no Jokic.
No way.
Maybe Ayton, but nah. That's not a take right now.
If I could have got him cheap, I would have been, willing to take the flyer on him and see what happens. But, with Noel in there, he's a worst plus minus on the team, -29. Just didn't give us that presence inside. And you see it in the second half, when we can't defend anything. And, just one of those games, man. I think we're starting to see, what we really need in the offseason, though. I think we do need a little more strength in the front court. Yep. Definitely need that playmaker. I want Rose to come back because, like you guys said, he's our second best player, which is kind of scary. So I want to bring him back for the bench, but still get an upgrade at the starting point guard. And I think we'll be all right. But we're starting to see the gap between, a true contender and where we stand in that, that second tier.
Yeah.
So that's,
go ahead, Jim.
So that was the question I wanted to bring up when I was first watching the game. And unfortunately, everything went south. So it feels like less appropriate to talk about. But I saw someone in the game thread mention that Rose is the second best player on the team. And I kind of wanted to see what you all thought about that.
Right now, yeah.
I want to say he's the second best player, but RJ might be the second most important player for the Knicks' future for the next season, if you want to word it that way.
Well, no, I'm just talking like right now. Like I'm not trying to project into the future. I'm
It's
just talking
clearly
as this
Derrick
man.
Rose. Yeah, it's clearly Derrick Rose right now with the way that it's going down. Point guard is the most important position on the court right now. He's been playing the second best ball outside of Julius Randle. I mean, as much as that's what I was saying. As much as RJ's important because he's a future of the youth and he had a good second season so far. It's Derrick Rose to me. I don't think it's really a question unless somebody thinks it's a little closer than I do. All right, Move. Before you got cut off, you can finish off your thought there, man. Still on mute, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I agree. I think Rose right now is the second best player. You can tell the talent's still there, right? So the muscle memory still there. It's just the body's not what it used to be. But the talent, from a talent and stability standpoint, Rose clearly is right now the second best player. I mentioned, I think last podcast, that he's kind of the co-MVP of the team, and I still stand by that. He's not going to be able to give you what the Knicks need, right? So that's pretty clear. If he was, the Knicks would already be above 40 wins. But from a talent standpoint, from what the team has, yeah, definitely Rose is the second best player right now.
Yeah, I think Rose is definitely, the guy who's second banana on the squad. Long term it's RJ, but if we're talking about right now, we're starting to see he's entrenched in that fourth quarter lineup pretty much every game that matters. When we need big buckets and when Julius Randle is being surrounded, double teamed, feeling a lot of defensive pressure, the guy who usually steps up is Rose. And then I think the big difference between him and RJ right now is, Rose can be successful off the dribble, on the ball, creating his own shot. You just clear out some space and he'll be able to use his creativity. He has that little go-to spin move to the one-handed push shot floater, and he's been working that lately, especially, since he's been having this great stretch of play. So I think for right now, Rose is definitely the second guy. In the future, you want to bring in someone who can slot him down maybe to just like the dynamite six-man instant offense guy, and have another reliable guy who's on par with Julius Randle to, bring that offensive mentality every game, who's a little more consistent and diversified in his offensive attack than RJ Barrett is right now. Paul, give me your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, man, when they got Rose, I was okay with it because we gave up a second round pick, but I really wasn't expecting much from him. And it's really incredible. He looks so much better than he did in his first go around with the Knicks 4 or 5 years ago, whatever that was. I think he's I think he has a better understanding of his limitations now. I think back then, like in his head, he was still MVP Rose, and I think now he's matured a little bit and understands what he can and can't do on the floor. I worry sometimes that we're playing him too many minutes because of that all the miles on those knees and the trouble that he's had. But they need him desperately. I'm a big RJ guy. I think RJ is he's just 20 years old and he's still figuring it out. A lot of times he disappears at times from the game. He misses a lot of chippies around the basket. Seems like he gets in there and he's kind of off balance. And I don't know if it's just as simple as using a jump stop or what, but I think he can improve on that. And I'm blown away by how his shooting has improved this year. I mean, to me, that's probably the most shocking thing that's happened this whole season. I mean, last year he was terrible. The first 10, 15 games, he was terrible. And now he's like a knockdown 3-point shooter. Tonight, excluded.
He was like 5 of 11 tonight too. He was like 5 of 11 from 3 tonight, but he was just brutal everywhere else.
Yeah. It seemed like just mental lapses.
Well, no, I mean, I thought he got fouled. I thought he got hit a lot too, but like he missed maybe like 4 or 5 layups easily. That could have been the difference in the game too. It's just like he killed us tonight, and it's very rarely that you can say that. He's usually not making dumb mistakes or like forcing stuff, but he that was all him tonight. Forcing shots. Just awful. No defense. Left Crowder open so many times.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think part of his RJ's problem not getting fouls is kind of just like Randall. They're big, strong guys, and they take a pounding, and it doesn't show. It just kind of bounces off of them, and that kind of contributes to the rest. If they're gonna call a foul, they want to see contact impacting what you're doing, and RJ is just a really strong kid, right? For his age, his body, I mean, it's like a really mature body. So I think that partly contributes to why he's not getting any calls. I don't think it's the age. Yeah.
So but what gets me too is he does a lot of Euro steps, right? He lacks that explosive athleticism, which is why I like that Paul Pierce comparison that I made. He lacks that athleticism to really explode and initiate contact. He tries to avoid contact as much as possible, which is why we see some of those wild, little hook layups when he throws it up. We saw a lot of those reverse issues few weeks back. So like you said, he's still 20, he's still growing, and he's learning to be the second, third best player on, a legit playoff team. So it is going to be some growing pains for him. A tough defensive team in Phoenix. He had a good team in Denver. Some of those teams are always going to crowd up on him and things like that. So it's good for him to grow. But to me, I wish, even with the lack of athleticism, learn to lean into the contact, use that body that Moo mentioned. You're mature, a mature body for a 20-year-old kid. You got to use that a little bit more and play a little bit harder. The Euro step works, but it becomes too easy to defend. To Jim's point there, it looks like he's getting hit a little bit. But to that point, it's kind of, all right, we know he's just going to Euro this way. He can finish right or left, but he doesn't, do it as explosively as you would want somebody like him to.
He's
at the end of the day, he needs to finish over contact better. You know what I mean? Like that's really the big difference is that like if he can power through something, like the 3 or 4 times that he got fouled and then you can call it, that's an extra 6 points and he's way more efficient instead of like at one point he was 7 of 15 tonight. I think he ended up at 8 of 23. You hit 3 more shots. That's 11 of 23. And that's a little less inefficient, and then you're not dragging the team down as much.
The thing with RJ is like you got to look at his game in stages of development. If we think back to last year, like he was really physical. He was trying to power his way through everything. That's when we were giving him so much props for like his body and able to have so much strength for a 19-year-old at that time and to play through contact. Then you fast forward to this year. Early on, he was like really trying to establish his jumper, had that ugly stretch where he missed like 20 straight threes or whatever. Then, the jumper started clicking. Then we saw Emmanuel quickly starting to go into the floater. And RJ kind of mimicked that. He started going to that little spin move, going to his own floater. So I think we're just seeing him try different things at different stages in this season. And right now we're in a stage where he's trying to be a little more finesse as opposed to that power RJ. And I think maybe we'll see him put it all together next year where he has the jumper working, he has the power game working, and he also has the finesse game with the floater and a little the finishes where he doesn't really seek out contact. But, going into the offseason, I want to see Johnny Bryant really take him under the wing one more time. And I want to see him work on, some explosiveness. Like Slay said, if he can come back showing a little more quick twitch ability, I think that'll make a difference in be able to score through contact and finish a little more athletically. But, 20 years old, if anyone told us that, the numbers he's put up this season, in the offseason would be what it was, I think we all sign up for that with no problem at all. So I'm still happy with his development.
Yeah, I think you can be upset with it. Athleticism, unfortunately, is the only thing that you can't be taught. You can't be taught to be more athletic. You're either, athletic or you're not. But I just think the mentality of it, you're right. He was a lot stronger going to the hoop. That's what I want to see more. And I guess to me right now, we're not a rebuilding team. We're a playoff team. Don't try out new shit right now. Get your shit that works, that could support Julius Randle, and let's make this playoff push because, it's getting to the point where, the Hawks lost the game, we lose the game. Now the Celtics lost to the lowly Bulls. Everybody's talking about the Celtics got a good schedule. Knicks aren't able to take advantage of it. Like this is the part in the season where don't try new stuff out. You know what works for you. You know what's been doing well. Like you said, he's had a great season. Just play well, play to your strengths. But it's also, important as Knicks fans to not ride the highs of the 9-game win streak, but not get too low, losing to 2 Western Conference championship contenders.
So I think Coke brings up a good point about the floaters that RJ was hitting. And I think that's what the big difference is that I feel like he hasn't had as much success with that, like kind of like floater runner that's maybe about like 8 to 10 feet away, and that he's going back towards the rim again. Because like he had a bunch of shots at the rim tonight and that he just missed. Me personally, I thought he got hit on a bunch of them, but I mean, that doesn't really matter that much. You still need to finish through that contact regardless of the situation. So it's like, I think that's where you saw the jump in finishing is because he was pulling up and hitting those floaters. And now that he's been struggling with that a little bit, he's trying to get back all the way to the rim again, and it's not been as successful.
Another thing is like he's playing 40 minutes too. You know, you look at his minutes tonight, you know, he almost played 41 actually. And if you think back, ever since Burks got hurt, he saw a huge uptick in minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if like he's hitting a little secondary wall. And you know, the reason I say that,
and he's not as explosive because he's tired.
Yeah, because you know,
I can see that.
Yeah, we're at that point in the season, right before the playoffs, where you know you're jumping and you're not getting up, you know, as high as you used to. You know, you're trying to explode, and it's just not the same explosion. You know, he's gonna have to fight through some of these things in the you know, the crunch time going into the end of the season and into the playoff season. So, you know, these guys are beat up. I don't think anyone's really feeling fresh right now. But if you're gonna cut back on minutes, it would be the opportune time. But the Knicks really don't have that cushion. Like you said, we're battling for that fourth seed. We want home court advantage. We've got to take advantage of that. And these guys just got to suck it up and power through it.
So, Coke, to that point, since Burks went down with injury, he's been at just a hair more than 39 minutes a game.
Woo!
Compared to 34 and a half on the season.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
I mean, like 3 or 4 games ago, he played like 45 minutes. You know, like that was insane. Sorry, Paul. Go now.
Yeah, no, and it's a somewhat compressed schedule. You know, they're playing more frequently than they do in regular season. So it's not only is it more minutes, it's less recovery time than you have most of the time. I think he, you know, he probably didn't get some calls tonight. I think part of that is on him as well, though. I think when you go up strong, you're more likely to get calls. Sometimes he's just kind of off balance. He gets in there and he's not he doesn't set and go up strong. And I think you're not going to get those calls if you're off balance or not going up strong to begin with. Not saying he shouldn't get the calls, but I think you're not as likely to get the calls.
Yeah, there was like twice he ended up on the floor where I was just like, I mean, like, come on, guys. Like, you need to call that. Like, I mean, you know, not everybody's going to get 10 free throws a game or 12 free throws a game, whatever, what I thought he probably deserved. But, you know, give me like at least 2 more fouls. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too picky.
You know, speaking of, you know, just the situation with the shortened season, condensed schedule, I want to dig a little deeper into that. And since we got Paul on, for those who don't know, you know, we had him on the cast a while back. If you guys go to our Spotify, you'll see we interviewed him on his book, The Knicks of the 90s, The Brawlers That Almost Won It All. So with Paul being such a historian, I'm sure you can think back to those times. I think it was during the lockout season where there was another situation where the Knicks had a really condensed schedule. Do you see any similarities with, you know, what this team is fighting through? It's, you know, playing so many games back to back and, you know, in such a short series of time, because, you know, even as a podcast, we're feeling a wall. You know, these games just keep coming at us. We don't get a break. I'm sure the players don't feel it. So just for a sec, take us back to that time with the, you know, the lockout. I think it was 99, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 99 was a lockout, and it ended up being a really strange season because it was tough for the Knicks because they had a lot of new pieces. You know, and they brought in Sprewell, they brought in Camby, they brought in Kurt Thomas, so they had a lot of new players, and you know, really no training camp and no practice time, which is similar to this year. They also had a couple injuries which set them back. But this season, you know, I think in general has a little bit of that feel because things just feel off, right? I mean, in addition to being compressed, you have guys in the protocol for COVID, and just weird things are happening, and so there are some similarities to that season in that sense. But the teams are pretty different teams. This Knicks team and that Knicks team.
Yeah, now it's funny you bring up Spree, right? So last podcast or a couple of podcasts ago, we had a comparison about who we think RJ kind of reminds us, you know, as a player comp, We're talking more Jimmy Butler, I brought Paul Pierce. In the chat, I want to just shout out Baki real quick. He's been talking about on the open court, RJ doesn't have the moves like a Kevin Porter Jr. Now, I've also had conversations with my friends where we try to compare RJ to like older Knicks, from the 90s. And one of the comparisons that came up was Spree. Although Spreewell, like Baki says, like we've been saying, was a lot more athletic, a lot more explosive an athlete. So, Paul, I wanted to get your opinion both on, one, like maybe a contemporary player comp for RJ Barrett, who you think he might evolve into, and then give us a 90s. If you can compare him to anybody from those 90s teams, early 90s, the late 90s, who do you think he kind of reminds you of there? It'd be interesting to get your take on that.
Oh, wow. I mean, currently, I like the Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler's kind of his ceiling. And I'd be thrilled if he develops into Jimmy Butler. I see the Paul Pierce thing. I've heard Karan Butler too, going back a little bit, and a similar player. I think Karan was an all-star once or twice.
I think he hit it with a whiz.
And kind of similar build. From the 90s, Spree was just so much more athletic and quicker than RJ. Man. I don't know. That's a good question. One. Yeah.
Because Spree was just so much more athletic. Like their game's a little bit similar. I think Spree might have been a better shooter than I might remember him for. And I think it's just the only difference is the athleticism there. I feel like their game's a little bit similar, but yeah, like you said, it's a little tough if you think about it because there's
and RJ's a little bigger. He's got that bigger body, almost like a mix between like Spreewell and like an Anthony Mason. I mean, obviously he's not as strong and big as Mason, but Mason had a lot of skills. He couldn't shoot, but he could handle. He could defend a lot of different positions. I think that's a very underrated aspect of RJ, his defense. He really gets after it, and he can defend 2s, 3s, even 4s. I think, especially as he gets older and fills out even more. And he's banging. One of the most impressed I was all season with RJ was when we went up against the Clippers much earlier in the year, and he really banged with Kawhi and went toe-to-toe with Kawhi. I was like, oh, all right, he's a dog. Like, he gets after it, and he's physical, and he's not going to back down, and that really impressed me with him. So it's hard to – there's not one particular guy. I think he's got pieces. There is some Spree in there, because Spree had that dog in him too. Spree really got after it. But he's got that physicality that Spree didn't necessarily have too.
Yeah, like I got a comp in the clip, and I don't think guys are gonna like it just because it's a player who was like a part of those Knicks teams that were losing a lot. I don't really see the Spree thing just because stylistically I don't think their games are linear. Maybe in mentality, yes, but I'm gonna throw my comp out there. A smaller Al Harrington. Especially if he gets the 3 ball to go more consistently the way he is this year. They just have that game. They're not really athletic, but they can get to their spots. They can score. They have strength. Even body style. They're not strong in the sense where the guy's cut up and he looks like, a physical specimen, but he just has that man strength that you just, you kind of underestimate. And Al Harrington, he kind of had that kind of game to him where, he got to his spots. If you slept on him, he would beat you off the dribble, but he had a good shot as well if he had his feet set, and he had a scorer's mentality. And, I just see a comp there. He's just a little bit smaller.
That's actually an interesting comparison. I mean, I think, like you said,
that makes me sad, but yeah, it is comparison.
What's funny?
Free candy comp? I don't know.
I remember watching Harrington when he was still with the Pacers. And I was thinking, this kid's got game, right? He's physical, like Coke says. He's skilled. It's just somewhere along the way when he got to the Knicks and the whole free candy thing happened, he just went off kilter. But as a Pacer, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it.
He just never attacked the basket, right? He just never attacked the basket here. He just liked to just sit out there and chuck.
I think he ended up settling and got into it. Got it into his head that he's a better offensive player than he was. Hopefully it doesn't happen with Barrett, because you still see signs of it while he tries things that he, to me, it's almost like sometimes Barrett will make plays thinking that he's, better than he is. or more skilled than he is, and that's why he goes off kilter and loses control. That was also kind of Harrington when he was with the Pacers. With the Knicks, I mean, I think that's why everybody's going to get on you is Harrington's Knick days. But
he was a big time recruit, and he was like when he was drafted, he was known as a great offensive talent. I remember even as a high school guy, on the New Jersey scene. I think he came out of Elizabeth, New Jersey, and he was a big time scorer. Very talented. I don't think he didn't pan out because of skill. I think it was just stuck on some bad teams. He developed bad habits, and it leaves a nasty, taste in the fans' mouth. But we might not be giving him more credit than he deserves as an offensive talent.
Yeah,
I mean, elite high school guy. It kind of fits RJ to a T too. An elite high school scorer. I mean, he beat as the Canadian national under-18 team. He beat USA by himself, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that kind of fits the description. Hopefully, he doesn't develop those same bad habits because he definitely kind of chucked tonight. It definitely felt like he was like putting up some shots he probably shouldn't have.
I think he needs to work on his mid-range, jab step, turnaround. Right now, he's either corner three or he barreling to the basket. Right.
Yeah.
He's got to get that middle game so that hopefully it opens up some lanes. I think two. I kind of want I always want to work in Nerlens Noel because you guys know I'm not
your least favorite player.
Yeah, I mean, what makes it difficult, and I mentioned in on the board, is it's not just Peyton, it's Noel. With the two of them out there, not only are the Knicks immediately hampered when they have the ball, right? As far as opposing defenses, what they need to do, who they need to stop. He doesn't draw any defender, the big man, out of the paint, right? They'll let him do whatever. And so what happens is you got all these bigs clogging the paint. And when you have that, because RJ doesn't have the great explosiveness, he doesn't have the greatest lift, he's going to get blocked, constantly. Same thing with why Randall's struggling a lot, which, from my standpoint, it says even more about how good Randall has been, considering that he's, what he has to work with. When you're going 3-on-5, especially against elite teams, that's something, right? And he's averaging, the assists he's averaging, the numbers he's putting up, that's tremendous, considering what he has to work with. I was thinking throughout the whole game, I was imagining CP3 on the Knicks, right? Current day CP3 on the Knicks, and then seeing what would that mean for RJ, especially, right? But also Barrett, and it's huge, right? So it kind of underscores we've talked about this to death. I'm going to bring it up again. That's shows you the importance of why this team needs a shot creator, someone that can handle the ball, that can get the ball to Barrett, to Julius a lot better, right? Randall's not, he's not LeBron, right? I said this even last year. So you can't run the offense to him. I don't think so. I think he's a secondary playmaker, right? He's a really skilled offensive player, but he is not a LeBron James caliber guy where you can run the offense through him. You need that other guy, the primary guy, to run the offense through. And that'll make Randall just a whole lot better. He can still be secondary. He made some plays when he's going to the basket, not with three guys draped around him. He's special, right? But right now, with them going 3-on-5 whenever they have the ball, and Noel and Peyton are out, it's a struggle. You can see the frustration. I mean, he's trying. But yeah, I mean, it's just brutal right now at times.
Zach Lowell just mentioned in his recent article about Randall, about how good the pick and roll between Rose and Randall is, and it's like if you up that to even a better creator than Rose,
correct?
He might be. I think he might be like 1.3 points per possession. I'm sure it's like you get a better creator like Chris Paul, it's gonna be like 1.5 or 1.6.
I mean, you're going back to the days where Paul covered the Knicks. The Knicks have been asking for a point guard for 30 damn years now. We had a little bit of Stephon Marbury, but outside of that, our best point guard that we finally remember is Charlie Ward and Chris Childs. You know what I mean? And
3 weeks of Jeremy Lin, more like it.
Like 3 weeks, you got Linsanity 3 weeks and stuff, but that's it. Like, you know, those were the days where you got a Jason Kidd. Paul, like, how long have you been clamoring for an elite point guard to lead a solid Knicks team? Like,
man, I mean, it's been a long time. And, you know, like, the Marbury thing was just crazy, so I'm not even going to count Marbury. But, like, I mean, Derek Harper was really good in the 94 finals. We're going back to 94. But he, as well as he played, he wasn't that super quick, get into the defense, break it down. The last guy I remember like that was Rod Strickland, who they traded in 1990. He was the last, but they haven't had like that really quick guy who's going to get into the paint and create. Yeah, they need it desperately. I mean, you know, Mukau hit it on the head. They need a creator. You know, when the game started today, I mean, I love this team, love it. I mean, you know, we're a little down because they lost tonight and it was a bad loss, but I think we've all enjoyed the season. And they showed the starting lineup tonight, and I thought to myself, I looked at our starting lineup. I said, I cannot believe that this team is 37-29. I can't believe it. Like, so with that starting lineup, it's really incredible. So, you know, like you said, Slice, like we can't, you know, we got a little too high on that win streak, but we can't get too down on these losses. And we have to remember where we're coming from. I mean, and the expectations coming into this year. And it's crazy. I mean, it's good. It's great that we're having this conversation. How do we get from a good team to a great team? And that's a difficult step to make. But wow, I can't believe we're where we are.
yeah, definitely. So I just want to give a quick shout out. Baki in the chat was fighting off some trolls for us. I guess people got nothing better to do at 1:30 but to watch us and talk some smack. But, you know, he's talking about Mark Jackson as well, going back in those times. You know, he had Strickland, Mark Jackson, and then Harper was a good shout out. People kind of forget, you know, he came a little bit later in his career. But real quick, before we get into wrap it up, he thinks that we should trade 2 first-round picks for Malcolm Brogdon, which is a little bit pricey. But I do like bringing Brogdon here. It's just that contract. So just something to think about. It's a little bit tough. Oh, that's Wingo. My fault. That's Wingo. Old man Wingo. So he definitely remembers those good old days. But, you know, I think I like Brogdon over come here and stuff, but we'll see. It's a lot to go on. But going back to the game, Coke, I know it's a difficult one to do when we got our asses handed to us tonight, but who's your Alfred Payton of the Warrior Night winner?
Well, you know, normally I don't give it out to Knicks, but, you know, it's late. You know, it's aggravating loss, so I got to aggravate you, Slice. It's going to your boy, Frank Ntilikina, man.
You got to put some Frank on his loss?
15 minutes.
Yes.
Donuts all across the board. Only 1 assist. Just did a bunch of nothing out there. And, you know, games where you got Burks out, you know, where you got Quickly out, everyone's always talking up Frank. This is your chance to, you know, make the best of your minutes. You can't be dropping Cheerios all across the damn box score, man. So I got to give it to him, man. I know there are a lot of other issues that, you know, plague this loss.
A lot more issues.
But I'm giving it to Frank. He, man, 15 minutes, absolutely invisible. And when we're missing wings like Quickly and Burks, we got to get production, you know, off the bench at the wing spot. And he just didn't give it to us.
1 second, right? Can I just point out that Coke always hates stats, except when he's going at Frank.
Hey, Frank doesn't pass the eye test either, though. He doesn't pass any test, man.
The whole chat went wild when Frank threw that bounce past the Taj.
Yeah, one of the
everyone went wild.
That's the only thing.
Yes,
we like players that play. We like players that play defense. You know, sometimes the things he doesn't pop out on the box score. That's about it. I think Elf is a scrub, but you know, I guess that's too easy. So you got to give it to Frank.
Yeah, we got to switch.
Who you got?
We got to switch it up.
You know, I planned on Frank as well.
Yes,
I was going Frank too.
My boy,
I know Frank is like one of the most polarizing, you know, players in the Knicks in the last like 30 years, and I've always been a Frank defender. actually. I think I'm kind of one of the last guys on Frank Island. I like just forever have thought that this guy could be a player in this league, that he could be a contributor to this league. There's a part of me that still feels that way. And then you came out. I felt the same way that Coke did. I was thinking about it after the game. I was like, he just gave them nothing tonight. I mean, nothing. And the defense, he wasn't terrible on defense, but he was okay. I mean, he was okay on defense, but I mean, you got quickly, like you said, it was very noticeable because Quickly and Burks were out, and they really needed something, anything, and and like, look, all right, so he's not he's not the most aggressive guy offensively, so you know what, go and grab a few rebounds, deflect a couple passes, and defense, he was on the court for I don't know how, like, so you said 15 minutes, Cope. You didn't even know he was out there the whole time. You didn't know he was out there, and that was just and it was disappointing because, like I said, there's a player in there somewhere. We've seen it at times, certainly on the defensive end, and he just gave him nothing. So yeah, I'm
there
going
was
with Frank tonight too.
There was definitely a moment too where you like saw that like kind of like the whole team like lost faith in him when he like it was like the end of the shot clock, probably in the fourth quarter, and like Randall set a screen for him, and you like really needed him to drive to the hoop, but instead he like kind of like kicked it back out to
Yes,
Randall.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was just like that's when he ended up getting subbed out. And that was like, and I've never wanted to draft Frank. Like I was against Frank's from the beginning. So it's like, don't like, and that was even for me, that was a deflating moment. It was like where you really needed him to like make a play, and he just didn't. He was just like, I'm going to defer, get rid of the ball. And that's like the sum up of his career. He's just like, he's going to defer and give up the ball when you need him to do something.
Not to drag this out, but at this point, I just got to throw it out there. You can't bring him back. You just can't justify it. Not for the dollar, dollar amount that it's going to cost. And then at the same time, I mean, even for his hallmark, which is supposed to be defense, right? You can't be a defender who has the physical tools that he has. He just doesn't generate turnovers. Like, where are the steals? Where are the blocks? Where are the deflections? Like,
it's something I've always said too, dude.
Yeah,
right out of my mouth. Same thing.
Yeah, and if you're good, I mean, if you're not going to give anything on the offense, you have to be an elite defender. Right. I mean, you got to be one of the best defenders in the league to justify his lack of offensive output. You can't just be okay. You can't even be good. You have to be phenomenal on that end. And it's just not there. You have to be.
He just makes
be able to change
rotations. That's it. That's all.
Right. You have to be able to change games on that end, and he's just not doing that. Like Noel. I mean, you're right, Mukab. I mean, Noel is a problem offensively, but he's. The last two games aside, he's been fantastic defensively. I mean, he's made his presence felt on that end of the floor. Frank is just not. He's not making his presence.
Noel pokes balls loose. He blocks. He weak side block shots. Frank doesn't give you any of that stuff. No extra possessions from his defense.
Yeah, I think you're giving Wingo some high blood pressure right now. He's saying he's getting pretty tight in that chat. And I mean, I think the one thing that stood out to me that kind of disappointed me about Frank was when Obi got that steal and Frank turned it right over when he couldn't hit RJ on that pass cut into the hoop. So, yeah, I mean, he's not bringing it like he should have. You can't really defend him there. I'm a fan of his. He has the defensive tools, just doesn't bring it like he's supposed to. The only thing I'm going to hold my hat on is Luka, the darling of the league. He plays the best defense on him stats-wise. So y'all can suck on that. But let's look forward to the next games over here. We got the two LA games coming up, a Sunday matinee, 3:30 Eastern time against the Clippers. Coke, as always, I'll kick it off to you first. Give us your thoughts if they changed from the last night, from 2 nights ago.
I'm sticking to my guns, man. I think it's unfolding just the way I called. I knew this was a game that would give us trouble, and I called the L. Don't ever want to see these losses come, but, it's just what I felt. And that played out the way I saw it. And I think the last two are going to play out the way I saw it, that I see it. I think we're going to sweep that LA, portion of the trip, and we're going to go home on a higher note, and everyone's going to be happy.
Yeah, I'm with Coke. I think I also called this game an L, but I think the Knicks matchup, it was just the Knicks don't match well with this team. I think the matchups with the two LA teams are better, especially since I think they're still a little bit banged up. So yeah, I'll go with I'm with Coke. 2 wins next 2 games.
I mean, we really need to split these 2 games. I think Kyle was saying it before in one of the threads on Real GM that if we win the 3 games, I think we pretty much guarantee that we're in the 4 or 5 spot. I think Wally was saying on the post game that we're guaranteed at least 6. Kyle, I feel like you're smarter than Wally. So,
Kyle, that's not saying much.
I know it's not saying much.
So tell me that your information is right and Wally is wrong.
Put him on the spot.
We are more or less, we're in a really good position to get to at least 6. Right now, the only thing, like as long as we win 3 more games, we get the 40 wins, we basically have 4 or 5 locked up. The only way that we would lose 4 in that scenario is if the Miami Heat win out. Okay. Any other scenario, we get 4 as long as we get to 40 wins.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm gonna just say split the LA games. I don't care which one is which. Like if we lose tomorrow, as long as we win against LA. I think the dream is obviously to beat them both. But is Paul? I feel like Paul George is hurt. Am I right?
He's he played last night.
Okay, so he's back. Yeah, I think the one thing that will definitely match up better with them because they don't have any big man presence. And as long as RJ doesn't leave, Paul George open as many times as he left Jay Crowder tonight, I like our chances. We'll be competitive. So just split games. That's all I want because then we would just need to win, 2 more in the last 3. And I think, I think Boston and the Hornets are very beatable. And the Spurs aren't great either.
So you want to know what's actually really good for us standing wise is the Heat and Celtics play each other twice. Down the stretch.
That's good.
Go Celtics, I guess.
Just split them. Who cares? Get a loss each.
Yeah. If they split them, that basically guarantees us 4th
and 5th, 4 or 5, and basically play Atlanta. Yeah. Paul, what about your predictions, man?
I'm really just hoping for a split. I mean, the Clippers are another good team on the road. I don't know. I'd say on the road. I have no idea how much on the road matters right now. In the times of COVID. But I guess it probably means something. I agree. They also don't have. I'm not really afraid of their point guard. So that helps. And I guess we don't know if LeBron's going to play in the Laker game, right? That's
fingers crossed.
That's up in the air. I mean, if he's not out there, obviously that's a huge difference. And if he's not there, that's a game they should win. So I think they have a good shot at splitting. I'd be very surprised if they took both. I think they have a good shot at splitting. They really need to split.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Knicks would win this game, but if I knew Burks and Quickly were going to be out, I probably would have changed my mind on there because the lack of point guard play from the team kind of killed us. So I'll take this. I don't think we beat the Clippers, and I think we beat the Lakers. It's kind of my predictions there. The Clippers, even though they don't have that big man that can beat us, Boogie Cousins is not Boogie Cousins of old, so you're not scared of him. Kawhi and Paul George are still elite. They're still a great defensive team that could cause trouble for the Knicks, like we kind of seen lately with 2 other good Western Conference teams. So I think we need the split. We definitely need the split to go to 3-3 for this road trip, which any of us would have taken going in. A sweep would be great in LA, but it's tough to see. So I'm predicting, I think we lose, unfortunately, on Sunday, get a 3-game losing streak to kind of piss off the fans. Everybody's going to go jump off a bridge, and then we'll beat the Lakers and everything will be then we'll beat the Lakers and everybody will be happy again. I actually think we sweep the last 3 games. I think we'll beat San Antonio, Hornets, and Boston, but that's another question to see what our mindset is looking like once we get in there. So, let's split LA and I'll be happy. And I'm sure the rest of the fans will be too. But Colt, let's kick it off to you to wrap it up. What are your final thoughts?
All right. Final thoughts is, just looking at the situations where we tend to do well, I think we need to shoot the 3 ball, if we're not going to defend at an elite level. So when teams are not struggling and, get 100 points or definitely below that 110 mark, we got to really shoot above 38%. So I'm looking for, to close out this West Coast swing. Let's get back to knocking down that 3-point shot, free flowing offense. That way, we don't have to be worried about just bogging guys down and holding them to, low 90s and struggling to let teams to crack 100. We got to put some offensive points up, because all the time your defense is not going to be able to just win out these ugly games. You got to make shots at the end of the day. It's the NBA, and these teams are going to look to up the pace. So let's get back to knocking down that 3-point shot.
Jim?
Okay, yeah, I'll go now. Clearly, we really missed IQ and Burks. At one point in this game, I think RJ was either 7 of 14 or 7 of 15, and then I think he went on for like a 1 of 7 or 1 of 8 streak. And normally those shots usually go to IQ and Burks. Clearly, you don't want him taking 23 shots. I feel like if you spread those shots out and maybe even some of someone else's shots to IQ or Burks, we might be a little bit more competitive. We clearly need more offense, and losing 2 of our top offensive guys clearly hurt us. I hope they're back for Sunday. That's an important game on national TV. I think we're going to look way better if they're back and healthy. So, I'm praying for their ankles and their thighs to be better because we need them real bad.
Are there any indications whether they'll be back, Kyle?
They said day to day.
Day to day.
Yeah.
The thing is, because we don't have a ton of that top level talent. Randall is a top 15 player, maybe. We don't have another top 20, 25 player in the league. So we're winning our games by getting contributions by a lot of guys. If you're the Clippers and you're missing your 4th or 5th scorer or whatever it is, Kawhi and PG can carry that load. Same with the Suns. If their number 5 guy is out, CP3 and Booker can carry the load. We don't have those 2 superstars that could do that. So we need to fire on all cylinders. We need Quickly, we need Burks, we need Rose, we need Barrett, we need everybody contributing. So those losses, they're big.
Yeah, you don't. If you lose those guys, you can't really guarantee RJ can give you that 27, 28 plus.
Right, you don't know.
Right. He's definitely good for that 18 to 24. But you lose Quickly or Burks, and you're like, all right, RJ, we need 30 points from you. There's no guarantee of that. He just did it once in his career. So I think that's a very good point, Paul.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that, let's hope that both guys are back. I think it'll be a really good litmus test to see how they react, right, to really 2 bad games. If they come out and they, whether they lose or not, I don't think it is as important. Obviously, we want them to win. It's how they play, how they recover. Right? This is a bad stretch. It's a mini bad stretch, but it's a bad stretch. So how do they come out against the Clippers will be really important. That's the thing that I'm going to be most focused on. Not so much the win, whether they win or not. If they lose, then Clippers again also a great team, but how they react to it is really key for me.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, how about your final thoughts, man?
Final thoughts. I don't know. Just keep it even keeled, man. We can't overreact to this loss. We can't overreact to this mini down streak, if you want to call it that. Sunday's a new game, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. The Knicks were in it for basically 2.5, almost 3 full quarters before the momentum completely shifted there at the end of the game. They just never got back into it in the 4th. Would have been a nice revenge game to have, with Phoenix snapping the streak and, losing, getting smacked by Denver. Just instead turned into a 2nd straight disappointing loss. Again, Knicks get basically a day off, back at it again early Sunday afternoon. Paul, we really want to thank you for taking the time to join us late night, man. Everybody out there, make sure you check out his book, Knicks of the 90s, You and Oakley Starks, and the Brawlers that almost won it all, available anywhere that you can get books. Make sure, you hit that thumbs up button if you like what you heard tonight, as well as give us a like, as well as subscribing. We'll catch everybody Sunday afternoon. We out.
It's no blood, no foul. It's no blood, no foul. It's no blood, no foul. Crying for calls, we took your morale. Congratulations till we run that clock out. MSG to Mecca, this is our house. NYC forever when we mob out. See that kid drip, got that clock clout.